for weeks, according to our Adrian Wojnarowski. This pick sent to Houston along with Wall is a lottery-protected 2023 selection. Woj reporting that. Stephen A. Smith, bigger deal. Tell me, is it Wall to Houston or is it Russ to Washington?
Well, I think it's Russ to Washington. That's how I'm feeling about it right now. When I think about Russell Westbrook, listen, the difference in skill set. Russell Westbrook is tenacious, so is John Wall. Russell Westbrook sits a little better from the field, not as good from three-point range, but they both have a locomotive. They go at 100 miles per hour. And that mentality that Russell Westbrook has, that dog in him where he is fiery all the time, going 100 miles per hour, backs down to no one. Not that John Wall isn't like that either, because he is to a degree, just not as demonstrative with it as Russell Westbrook is. I'm here to tell you right now, Chocolate City, the people that I know, I got a lot of loved ones there, they are going to love Russell Westbrook's attitude being in the Verizon Center. I'm here to tell you that right now. It's going to be something special with him and Bradley Beal, because unlike James Harden, who dribbles a lot before he wreaks havoc, Bradley Beal doesn't need to dribble that much in order to be the marksman that he is. And this is a brother that just finished averaging 30 for the season. Because I love me some Bradley Beal, even though some people that I know who will remain nameless ain't that high on him. They know who they are. But in the end, I am. And I'm telling you right now, I think it's a plus for them. But for me, the reason why it's also a plus is because even though I believe in John Wall and I know he can ball, I just don't see how this keeps James Harden wanting to stay in Houston, which is why I'm at a loss as to why Houston would do this deal, other than the fact that they tried to get rid of Russ. And, according to sources, a lot of folks they didn't want Russ because Russ can be fiery and very strong-willed and strong-headed. And because of that, basketball operations, folks may not have wanted to deal with him. So the Houston Rockets might have felt they got the best deal they could. I just don't see how this helps them more than, the skill set. Russell Westbrook and James Harden didn't want to play together, Max. We all know that. But I don't see how John Wall, who's very similar to Russell Westbrook, helps James Harden want to stay in Houston. That's my only reticence about this for Houston.
Well, clearly the Wizards won this deal. And you want to know how the teams without GMs like Daryl Morey live? Like this. What is Houston signaling here? They're getting a first-round pick back. Like, if you want to know who's the better player, obviously Westbrook. He's 2 years older, but he's not coming off a catastrophic injury. He always plays with everything he's got and has been a greater player at his best than John Wall, although John Wall's been excellent. Neither one can really shoot. They have certain kind of similarities there. But one team had to include a first-round pick in the deal, and that team was Washington. Houston gets a first-round pick. So what are they really signaling with this? Because keeping James Harden, that's done. That ship has sailed. Harden's out of there. Everyone knows he's going to be traded. So really what Houston is signaling here, what Fertitta is signaling, I think, is, look, we're not going to try and win a championship next 3 years. But after that, we are. So here's something to watch in the meantime. We'll get what we can for Harden. We'll try to accumulate some first-round picks. Don't forget they had to move a lot of them in order to get Westbrook, in order to put the team together originally, and we'll see what we can do. I think it was a big mistake to let go of Daryl Morey. If I had Daryl Morey as a GM and he came into my office and said, I want to go somewhere else, I'd say, let's make this right. Forget about what's happened. Let's make it right. Here's some more money. Here's whatever you need. And I'd have kept Daryl Morey. In terms of Washington, they have arguably the best backcourt in basketball right now. I mean, CP3 and Devin Booker, yeah, I'd take that as number one. So what's this, number two? Because Klay's hurt. Where does this rank in the NBA? Show me a better backcourt. Show me a backcourt you can say is definitively better than Westbrook and Bradley Beal. Neither one is an MVP right now. But you know how I have my star system, 4 an All-Star, 5 an MVP. They're All-Star pluses. Those are 2 4.5s in the backcourt. So, that's just about as good as it gets. And Washington goes from an afterthought, a nothing in the division. When in the beginning of the season a couple of years ago, you're like, hey, maybe, 2-3 years ago, hey, maybe they can compete at the top of the division because John Wall, maybe he's the best player in the East. Remember those days? Long gone. They're an afterthought. But all of a sudden, Kemba's not going to be available. And Boston's not the same. Hayward's gone, right? And all of a sudden, you start looking around the East and you go, oh, wait a minute. Washington, they're not going to come out of the East, but Washington's going to be competitive this year. They're going to be fun to watch, and they're going to make the playoffs and maybe be a tough out. Let's see. They also got that Israeli kid in the draft, that big guard who people thought was going to go higher up.
Well, if I'm James Harden, I'm waking up today saying, get me the hell out of here. Get me out. I need to go either to Philly. I need to go to Brooklyn. I need to get out of here because this is not what I signed up for. And I don't know if this makes me happy to be here in Houston long term. If I wake up and I'm Bradley Beal on the East Coast in D.C., I'm saying, oh, I think we have a chance to be top 5 in the East right now. Getting Brody to come here to D.C., getting Davis Bertans to sign a 5-year, $80 million deal. This puts us almost in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. So, look, I now look at Houston and I say, John Wall, I hope he comes back and has an incredible year. Hasn't played since 2018, okay? He's injury prone coming off that injury. You have DeMarcus Cousins, injury prone coming off an injury. Now, that's an interesting team. If I'm Houston, if I'm Raphael Stone, how much longer can you hold on to James Harden without him publicly becoming a disgruntled employee? So if he's at a post presser every single day, when you know he's going to be asked this question over and over and over again, are you happy here? Eventually Harden's going to tell you how he feels. Do you lose trade value the longer you hold on to him? Or now are you starting to look at the Brooklyn situation and say, hey, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, some future first round picks. Maybe that is enough for a guy like James Harden because I feel like James Harden has given his heart and soul to Houston. James Harden deserves to have a shot at winning a world championship, and that will not occur in Houston. He has a better chance of doing that with Brooklyn or Philadelphia. Do the right thing for James Harden.
Do the right thing for James. Do the right thing for James. I look at it and say, you know what? This is kind of like for Westbrook going east and Wall going to Houston, they kind of just swapped contracts and players of that style to me. I mean, you get a healthy guy versus a guy that you really don't know a whole lot about unless they've had some private workouts of some sort on video where they've had an opportunity to see him bounce and run around where they can say, okay, I think we're getting the 2018 John Wall pre-injury, so we're okay with that. Boogie Cousins, on the other hand, we know what that, not only from an injury standpoint, but also from an in-shape standpoint, what that's going to look like. In terms of James Harden, and I've always said this, and I will continue to say it until I die, professional athletes, the moment that they tell organizations that they don't want to be there, the organization will try the best to move them. It just because you don't want to have a hostile situation inside of a locker room, especially with a young new head coach coming in to try to manage the situation. I don't care what he's done in his past previous stops with certain athletes and personalities, but to have a new head coach come in and you have a disgruntled player, I don't want to call it disgruntled, a player that's just not really feeling what's going on because he's watching potentially what the Brooklyn Nets could be doing in James Harden or potentially what Philadelphia could be doing. And he's sitting back there saying, I could be a part of that, but you're holding me hostage when I don't want to be here. I think Raphael Stone will get around to figuring out how to move James Harden. You got to go one piece at a time. It's too much to try to, just to digest when you have to deal with Westbrook, which was probably the easier deal to get done, and you got Harden, both of them on the same table, and you trying to navigate through that. That's a lot. So you want to get one off the table. Now we could turn our attentions to James Harden and potentially a Philadelphia deal or potentially a Brooklyn Nets deal. You revisit that now and see where it goes.
Let me tell you this. Right now with John Wall, because of the injury, he slipped and fell at his home. He had a ruptured Achilles. I thought Dustin Johnson was the only guy that could use that as an excuse if you're a golf fan out there. But 3 years, $132 million. You don't exactly know what you're getting. You know Russ obviously is a huge deal that's worth more than $130 million left on his deal as well. But we know what we've gotten from Russell Westbrook. At this point, 3 years, $132. We don't know what we're going to get from Wall. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just know somebody else who slipped and fell and then was out of work for 2 days.
You almost got cussed out. Man,
What? He just, you slipped and fell at the house. You rolled your ankle. You're out for 2 days. That's all I'm saying.
DJ slipped and fell at Augusta. Key slipped and fell in Brooklyn. And John Wall did so in and around the district.
Because you're trying to sell a narrative to the people that's listening and looking as if I'm clumsy and non-athletic.
No, you're extremely athletic.
And I'm not going to have you doing that.
Your dog came underneath you and you didn't see him early in the morning. I'm just saying it happens. It's feasible. That's all.
No doubt. We're always having fun. So just quickly to go back, you don't know what you're going to get from Wall, as I mentioned, the 700 days, 3 years, 132. But let me ask you it from this particular standpoint, Jay, from an NBA perspective. The Wizards, this wasn't really talked about much because they haven't been talked about much. They were in the bubble. They played 8 games. They lost 7 of the 8 games. It basically took them. Fifth Wall was the Eastern Conference semifinals. I'm not pinning that on Wall. I'm just saying that this is a team that is there's a shot of adrenaline that needs to come into this team's arm. And
they just got it.
With somebody as exciting as Westbrook, playing at 100 miles an hour like Westbrook, the entertainment factor. I just think there's something here for Washington, even though everybody's talking about what it means for Houston, the residual for Harden. For Washington, they need to be relevant, and this gives them some relevancy.
And first off, to all the haters out there, Key, everybody with all these different narratives, you were talking about narratives before. Well, Brody isn't a guy that helps the culture of your team. That's wrong. Brody does help the culture of your team. Let's talk about what happened to him. He started off slow this year, okay? Then he came on hot. Then he got COVID, missed some time in the bubble, came into the bubble,